So my name is Jean Dudley. I'm facilitating today. I attended many metamorphoses, but I can't actually tell you which ones because my memory of that time is quite vague. Cheryl Lodeman is our tech person who can mute you all if she wants to, or unmute you if she sees fit. She has also been a friend for many years and a long-time attender of Metamorphosis. I'm going to assume that everybody knows how to use Zoom. If you don't know how to raise your hand, you just click on participants at the bottom of your screen and all the names of the people will come up and there's a little raise hand icon down there on the left. And then Cheryl will know that you're trying to say something. And please feel free to write into chat. Cheryl is also going to be keeping track of the chat things. And so she'll let us know if we need to answer any of those questions. Okay, so today is being recorded. And so if you don't want to be recorded, if you don't want your face shown or you don't want your information shown, please let Cheryl know. And then she'll make sure that she puts in like a thumbprint or something for your mug, your face, as if it gets seen again. So our objectives for this workshop are to start collecting stories and making contacts with each other, to get more people contacting others, and to work towards an eventual virtual museum about metamorphosis. So that's sort of pie in the sky for us at this point, but we wanted to get started. And for me, Metamorphosis was such a prairie event. It was huge in our lifetimes. It went on for more than a dozen years. It had people coming from Winnipeg, other parts of Manitoba, Edmonton, Calgary. It really was a prairie celebration. And it drew us all together. And I think that's the kind of thing that we would like to see represented at the WDM about us as queers in the province, or it's the kind of work that we used to do, and we used to be a really strong community. And there may be a strong community with young people now, I just don't know them. So somebody else will have to respond to that. Anyway, I think those are all the details that I wanted to go. So what I'd like to do for the process is just go around the room and hear from people, and I get you to introduce yourself, and then and also answer a question like, why do you think the event of Metamorphosis was important to the community? And if you attended, did it have any special meaning for you? And I'm interested in some other details, but I think that's a good place to start. So I don't know how we're going to go around the room. Cheryl, are you going to pick?
Yeah, I can. Okay. Well, I think people can put their hand up if they want to start, and right. we can go from there. I think the other, just to mention to people that one of the challenges we had when we started developing this workshop was we needed to get basically a ground story about Metamorphosis. When did it happen? Where was it happening? What were the events around it? And what we discovered was that, of course, they're locked in the archives and at the university in the province are some records. But in fact, we actually don't have a lot of records about the story of Metamorphosis over its course of time. And it's a sad statement for our community because it was such a big event in our community, but it also draws a picture that we actually don't have a lot of information about the history of our community in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon. And that was really became a defining feature of the conversation between Jean and I, which was, if we don't start recording these stories, if we don't start telling these stories, if we don't start asking you folks to share whatever you have, if back in the dark closet of your basement, the last time you moved, there's a big box of stuff from the past. If you don't start taking pictures of them and sending them to us or to the archives or to the WDM, we will have no story out there. And that will be a tragedy. It'll be a tragedy because we ourselves are rich components of the history of Saskatchewan, but it also says a lot to the young people who today actually have nowhere to turn in terms of understanding what we did, and you guys did, because some of you are way older than I am. I do dye my hair, but I see Tazara's there. So Tazara, I think you're way older than I am. But if we don't start talking about this now, we're not going to have any story there for the people who are going to grow up in our province. So anyway, I just wanted to do that. So why don't we show those hands? And I'm going to put myself on mute because when you're in your home audience, I have 3 very large dogs that I'm sure you can hear right now.
Thanks, Cheryl. So I don't see any hands up, so I don't know if you do, Cheryl.
Well, then I think you should just pick on maybe Aaron or even Roger. I see Roger there. He was around those days.
Roger, are you brave enough to start? He's muted, Cheryl.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Welcome.
Yeah, when I think back to that time, it really was a very exciting time, and I moved to Saskatoon in 1977, and that was the year that Saskatoon hosted the National Gay Conference. And I got to say, for me, it was an amazing event because there were people from all across Canada in Saskatoon. There was a major march. There was sort of gay and lesbian people from all across Canada in the park by the Besborough dancing together. And it was a very pivotal event for me. The following year, I remember that there was the protest march against Anita Bryant in Moose Jaw. People went on buses from Saskatoon down there. A very peaceful march through Moose Jaw. The police were on guard, expecting, I think, something awful to happen, and it didn't. And then shortly after that, as I recall, Metamorphosis started in Saskatoon, and I attended some of them. What I recall, and I don't remember specifics very well, I'm a bit like Jean that way, but I do remember the great sense of community and the fact that people were together. And while at the time I think we did realize that this was important, I'm not sure we recognized maybe how historical it was that these things were happening and that these events were happening. And also, I'm not sure we recognized the courage it took. We've got to remember the time that there was no human rights protection in provincial legislation at that time on the basis of sexual orientation. And yet we kind of just did this thing and did it together. And looking back, maybe we're a little naive. Maybe we should have been more fearful, but I actually don't remember a lot of fear. I remember people being very courageous, maybe, as Marjorie was talking about earlier, being quite radical and feeling fairly comfortable with that. And looking back now, I think, boy, that was amazing. That a group of people had that sense of community and worked together to put these events on. So those are a few of my reflections.
Thanks, Roger. Yes, I'm afraid they all blend together for me too. So I'm hoping to get some more information out of those archives that Neil set up for us. With like somewhere I read that one of them was held at the YMCA, and a huge dance was held at Prairieland Park. And I have absolutely no recollection of those things whatsoever. So doesn't mean I wasn't there. Just means I was busy. Anyway, maybe Delia, can I go to you? Cheryl, can you yeah, thank you.
There we go. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Well, I guess we're in the same boat because I it's kind of fuzzy. It was a long time ago. And coupled with sometimes when you're doing certain substances, you cannot form memories. But I remember at the time, it was courageous because we changed our name from the Zodiac Center to the Gay Community Center of Saskatoon. And there was a lot of pushback and we lost a lot of members. So, being so visible, you could find us in the phone book. I think it was pretty brazen and pretty brave. My part in Metamorphosis was I designed the poster, one poster, and I can't remember for the life of me what year that was. And, the same as those dances, my role is I was a DJ at the Gay Community Center. And so I was, the best of my knowledge, I think I was involved with a couple of the dances. But it was amazing because it was around Thanksgiving and we had our own community. And so it was welcoming. And there was a time when, back in the day, for a lot of people, and I guess it's still happening now, where people were not welcome in their own families.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case in my household, in my home. But I just remember the sense of community and breaking bread with all these wonderful people. People came from all over, it seemed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because it was held on the Thanksgiving weekend, and that would be, there's an American holiday that lines up on that weekend as well. But my fond memories are about community, and it was a place where we could feel safe together to be who we were. And so my fondest, warmest recollections, I was hoping some more people would have been here. I sent the link, but we're all busy people. But it was a pretty wonderful time, and I was quite young. I was a pup, so it's not surprising that you and I are in the same boat, Jean, about it all kinds of runs in together. When Roger was talking about the national conference, I was like, oh yeah, that was different from, I was starting to get time and place together.
Right.
But anyways, it's great to see all these faces here. And everyone that is carrying the banner for Saskatoon Pride. It warms my heart that I can go online and I can find you people. And from time to time, I look at, the different milestones, moving, new directors. It's pretty amazing. And there's a lot of great people that came out of Saskatoon, and in particular, the prairies, and we always felt that way. There are people that I remember that are no longer with us, and I can't remember all of them, but Jens Helquist, Doug Wilson, really pivotal in what was going on in Saskatoon at the time. So that's all I have to say. And just hi to everybody. And wonderful to be here.
Great to see you.
And I need a haircut.
No worries. How would we know?
We're in such an intense lockdown here. It's unbelievable. Okay, I'm going. Bye now.
Thanks, Julia. Great to see you.
Jean, we have a question and a comment, but maybe because Sherry could answer this because she's sort of reflecting on it in her comments. But what happened? The question is, what happened at Metamorphosis? We forget that there are people here today who have no idea. What happened at Metamorphosis? Were there speeches? Were there booths? What did it look like? I remember hearing there was family involvement, and Sherry has sort of answered that, so maybe we should let Sherry.
Okay. Yeah, I have this whole little write-up that I forgot to give at the beginning, so whatever. So Sherry McConnell?
Thanks. Jean, and I'd love to hear the write-up that you wrote after. Delia speaks of being young in those days. I was 18 when I came out in 1981 and felt like one of the youngest people in the community. And I was amazed because I'd heard all these, sorry, that'll be my clock. I'd heard all these really scary things about being a lesbian. and how unsafe it was. And my experience was falling into an amazing community where I felt loved and supported and where there was so much going on. And Metamorphosis was this long weekend celebration with workshops and play shops. And there were, in my memory, there were mixed dances as well as women's dances. We had concerts leading into some of the dances. I remember Heather Bishop performing at one of the later Metamorphoses when I moved back from Ottawa. So it would have been around 88 or so. And feasts.
Yeah.
Great feasts.
Every Monday.
Yeah. And I remember Denise Needham and Lynn Ray in the later years doing some of the food prep and taking responsibility for that. And it made such a difference when I moved away from Saskatoon and realized that what we had in Saskatoon was not had everywhere. I moved to Ottawa and they had great things, but they didn't have so many of the things that we had. And when I moved to Newfoundland, that was even more so. It feels sometimes like we're about 30 years behind in Newfoundland, or 40 years compared to so much of what we had in Saskatoon and still have in Saskatoon. But Metamorphosis was just, it was a whole celebration of being who we were and an opportunity to connect with people. And as I look at pictures on screen, my heart is warmed because I see so many familiar faces of people who were there at Metamorphosis and so many events. So that's some of my thoughts around Metamorphosis.
Thanks, Sherry. My turn or your turn, Cheryl?
It'd be your turn. There's no hands up, so
Okay.
you do the round table.
Right. Just a couple of other things that, and my memory, as I've said, is vague, but we used to have, if I remember correctly, sometimes we had a men's coffee house and a women's coffee house. Sometimes we would have like a women's dance on Friday night and a men's dance on Friday night and separate. And then on Saturday, we'd have an entertainer and then we'd have a mixed dance after that. On Sunday, we've had workshops, and then Monday around 11, we would have our turkey feast and feed everybody on their way traveling back home. I remember one year, at least I think this is true, that we brought in Meg Christian, who was this quite famous American lesbian singer from Olivia Records, which was the first women's or lesbian record company at the time. And you know, like really, I'd have to see pictures of myself there to prove that I was there. But I kind of think we did that, and we brought in the Weird Sisters on more than one occasion, and we had other female stand-up comedians from Winnipeg and from Alberta. And I couldn't get into the archives anywhere to get that, which is what I was hoping to have. I know that ads went in Perceptions from 1982 to 1989, which I think was the last year, 78 to 89. I think is the years that it went. And then there was sort of a revamping in 1998, 99. And I'm not sure if that's when Marian Alexander was so involved, and they tried to do a fundraiser and had a one-day Let's Remember Metamorphosis. But Sherry, I'm with you. It was an incredible community. We all worked together. We used to have, I sent Cheryl pictures. I have pictures, I think it was from 1979, of an art display, and one of the women I think was from Manitoba who brought clay works, and we had this whole thing for sale going on in the basement. And anyway, it all kind of runs together. But I'm gonna pick on somebody next. How about Aaron? Your face is up in my right-hand corner.
Okay. Metamorphosis was so important to me. I came here from Ontario in 1971 and came out and met Bruce Garman, and Bruce Garman invited me to the very first dance at the Zodiac Friendship Society. And there was just no turning back after that. And then, yeah, I was very involved with Metamorphosis. The whole thing was just so amazing. It was such a wonderful, warm and friendly community. And the connections, particularly because I was mostly connected to a lot of the women's stuff. I really appreciated the music. And you're right about those concerts. They were wonderful. And the other people, of course, the other musicians who played were Noel Hall,
Right.
and Jan was, my partner wasn't playing then, but Noel, who we did try to get hold of, and workshops of all kinds. Jean Hillebold, I think, a writer and author, was supposed to be here this morning, but I don't know what happened. She did writing workshops. We did bodywork workshops. There were some craft things. The feast, I was, one of my memories is that Barb Clay and Lynn who her partner then, Lynn Fontaine, coordinated the feast in some of those years. And I remember one particular day, Bernadette and I, Bernadette Harmon, who's now living in BC, and I took over the pies, and we spent a day making 46 pies in my kitchen. It was just, the feasts were so amazing. And with that, I was at the women's dances and the mixed dances. I wasn't there every year because I moved away later, out of Saskatoon, and now I'm back. But and then of course I was the first director of AIDS Saskatoon for 4 years, and maintained a lot of ongoing connections with the queer community here through that. So I just can't say enough about how wonderful Metamorphosis was. I think, yes, we do need to, for sure, having lost a number of really significant people in the community. Neil Richards is another one, that we absolutely have to get to doing this historical project, because too many people are going. And I'm in my mid-70s now. And, you know, I've lost other people younger than me and older. I expected Barb Clay to be here. And I'm sorry that Barb isn't here, because she would have had wonderful stories too about the feast and so on. But that's enough for me.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah.
There's a number of people's names here that I don't know. So if you're not putting your hands up, I'm a little hesitant to ask you to speak. But Jerry, I think you were at a couple of Metamorphoses. You're old enough.
How sweet you are.
I know.
Well, I was at one because when they started, I had already left Saskatoon, small town, school, teaching, terrified. I went further and further into the closet. So I attended only one, and that's because of a friend of mine, Doug Robertson. I have to be careful here on anonymity, but I think I just blew it. Asked me to speak concerning a certain 12-step program. And I was okay with that. And I did speak. That's the only thing I remember about that weekend. And it was a marvelous time, but that's the only thing that I remember. And then later, and I don't know if it was the magazine Perceptions or what, I don't know, a newsletter. And there was the write-up on the whole weekend. And there was the session that I had spoken at. And it had my last name in there. And I totally freaked. Not because I was gay, not because I was afraid of people knowing my anonymity. It was because I was afraid, because of the gay side, that people would see my last name, and I felt in danger because of that. And that's about the only thing I remember about it, except that I was aware with great longing every weekend or every year when it would be on, that I wish I could be there. I wish I could be there. And yeah, that's about my contribution level. Yes, I'm old. Yes, I was around in those days and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, so was I. Even Cheryl was around for some of them.
But you know, it's just an odd thing to, you know, to be back in those days. And it was with regret, and I felt that I was missing something, but at least I was aware that there was something happening, you know, that it wasn't just a broad prairie desert type of thing. So that's my good memory of it. That's it.
Thanks, Jerry. Peter and Lyle, were you guys ever there?
You do have a couple of hands up there too.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, we've got
Okay.
Jan.
Oh, sorry.
And then Larry does have his hand up.
Who's the first one?
Jan and Larry both have their hands.
Jan. Okay. Go ahead, Jan, and then Larry. Cheryl has to unmute you, I guess. You're good.
Okay, I'm good to go. Right. I'm living in Saskatoon now, but at the time I was living in Regina when I first came out finally in '79. And my first metamorphosis was in 1981, and I came up to several. They do blur together, but there was always a strong contingent of folk that came up from Regina. Of course, I knew the women and not the men. And there were some kids, some of their kids came up too with the women's the kids came up, and that was really important, I know, for them, because they made friendships that were important for them. And I remember it as just a high energy time when you could be yourself. And, you know, people here have described some of the kinds of events, but, you know, it wasn't really, that wasn't necessarily the most important part. It was just all being together and being yourself. And on a weekend that was normally a family weekend for folks on the prairies, and here we could come and be with our chosen family. And it was just well, it was seeing yourself reflected back in a positive way, and which you couldn't do at other times in your life other than going to dances. In Regina, there was the club, the gay club, the community gay club, which still exists. And there used to be at that time regular weekly women's nights there where we could meet and stuff. And so we got some things going we had lesbian potlucks and things like that down in Regina, but it was an additional thing to come up to Metamorphosis and be with people from and we made some really good friendships between Regina and Saskatoon folk, I know, and you met people from other parts of the prairies as well, but, you know, we were more accessible to each other, only 2.5 hours away. And the gay community was bigger in Saskatoon and more active, probably because of the university had the big university here is a smaller university in Regina. That had a big effect on that. Although I've got other theories too, but so there were still lots of gay people in Regina, but tended to be more quiet and closeted. So it was just an invigorating time during the year when you knew you can get recharged and go back and continue being yourself.
Thank you. Larry.
I'm just going to mention, Jean, that
Cheryl.
Barb Clay has also arrived.
Yes.
So if you want to, but anyway.
That's her hand over her camera.
Yeah.
Hi, Barb. Yeah. We'll get you next. Larry, do you want to go? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
Oh. Yeah.
Hello?
Larry? Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Larry.
No, I mean, I've got a few memories. I remember, do people remember the donut shop on 22nd and 2nd Avenue? Because I remember there was a donut shop there, and somebody had put up a poster with the butterfly on it, the Metamorphosis logo, right. And somebody had put up a poster in the entry. And that was the first time that I found out about Metamorphosis, and it must have been 80 or 81. So in 1980, I would have still been a teenager and living at home in Saskatoon. But I saw the poster and I started going to the events that year. And for me, the big memory, I don't have memories of many of the sessions or the meals, but for me, it was the dances. And I moved to Edmonton the next year to go to university, and I remember coming back every Thanksgiving and having to spend time with the family, but really dreaming about everything that I wanted to do and everyone I wanted to meet at the Metamorphosis dances. And the first one I went to, it was on the second floor of the old arena at the exhibition. Oh. And I remember walking in and seeing several hundred LGBT people and going, oh my God, this is incredible and I'm not alone. I mean, so for me as a young queer, it was just an amazing revelation to see all of that. So I don't know, I probably went to 4 or 5 and then I stopped coming back in Thanksgivings. But it was a good time.
Mm-hmm. All my memories of it are fond, those memories that I have. It just, you know, we had women's dances here for years, and International Women's Day celebrations here for years, and they were all kind of the same, you know, and we were hauling equipment and ordering booze and setting up tables, and it kind of all blurs together. Like, was that for IWD or was that like a coffee house? We always had women's coffee houses every year for International Women's Day through the queer community for quite a while. And anyway, it all blurs. But I'm hoping that if we can keep talking, we'll start triggering memories for each other. Mm-hmm. And if we can get some visuals, that will also help us remember more. So Barb, would you like to join us and say hello? And
sure. Hi. I remember my very first one that I went to was in the old building on that 3rd Avenue, the gay community. Remember that?
Went in the basement.
That was about 1981, I think, because I'd just come out. And I went with Lynn and her 4 kids. Right. I think there were about 30 of us there. It wasn't very big. We gathered around the table for the feast. And I remember standing up, holding hands with everybody and singing, "We are family." And Jim, the eldest of Lynn's sons, still to this day remembers his first metamorphosis because of that. He suddenly realized that he wasn't going to be the only kid, because I think Barbara Clancy was there.
Yep.
With her, and a few others, I'm not sure who else. But so the first one was there. My last one was a disaster up at the Cosmos Civic Center. Years later, we decided we'd had enough of doing all the catering, lugging food around and arguing about whether we should have too much meat or too much for the vegetarians. So we had it catered up at the Cosmos Civic Center, but nothing came because we had it on the Sunday. And Lynn and I were part of the host, and we were waiting. We kept calling the restaurant, saying, "Where's our food?" And they said, "Oh, it's the Thanksgiving food, so we're bringing it tomorrow." And we had 200 plus people waiting there with tickets, and we made such a fuss at the table. And Lynn was the nicest it's ever been, and it was a disaster. So we had to refund the tickets, and everybody went out in their 2s and 3s and had a meal somewhere else. But then we decided that was the end of it. So I don't know how many years that was, about 14 maybe. Anyway,
yeah,
that was
I think 1989.
1989, what? No.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I thought we went on a bit longer than that, but okay. Yeah, anyway, it was, those were the first and last ones. And we made most of the food early days, I remember, Erin, over at the Pink House. Remember where Bob Clancy used to live? Was it on 5th Avenue or something?
Yeah.
I know you made tons and tons of apple pies, but I made mashed potatoes till I thought I'd never want to see another potato in my life. And then we carted them over to the YW, because one year we had everything over at the YW. And Sue came up and gave a workshop on Reiki, I remember, over there. And then we had some of the coffee houses at the YW, quite a few in fact. And then we had a few concerts up at, I think there was an old warehouse up near Idlewild. I remember Lucy Blue Tremblay coming to that.
Oh, yes.
Remember?
Well, vaguely.
Yeah, I remember some of them. I mean, Heather Bishop often came, and Ferron we had one year. And there was a wonderful male pianist who came to the
Oh, yes.
gallery. Remember down in the basement at the Mendel? I don't know who he was, but the men, well, we all went. It was lovely, really nice. And then we had childcare. And I know one year when we had Metamorphosis on campus, we had childcare across the road at the Lutheran Center on the corner there. So there were quite a few kids that year. By then, they realized that they weren't the only ones, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And then I think James had a ballpark over on Quebec Avenue, and we had a softball game. So there were quite a few different events that I remember anyway.
Wow.
Great fun. Lots and lots of coffee houses, that's for sure. And well, yes, and I think after we'd been cooking turkeys forever, somebody got contacted at one of the hotels, and they cooked our turkeys for about, I think, 2 or 3 years actually.
Mm-hmm.
Great, saved us lugging them around. Yeah. But for me, it gave me a sense of community and something I really needed when I first left a very heterocentric community and thought, who am I now? And I met lots and lots of good friends and got very involved in the community and went on to do all kinds of things within it. So my chosen family became very, very important and still is. And I miss it being over here all my own. But it's nice to be able to connect today.
No, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Maybe it's worth noting the scale, I think, for lots of people who were younger. That and I came, my first one was 1981. Probably Sherry and I were at the same dance. And I remember that the women's dance and the men's dance were separate on a Friday evening. And I think for the years that I attended, there were about 200 women who came to that dance. And then the men had a like amount. And on Saturday night, we had one mixed dance, about 400 LGBT people. It was amazing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think today that I haven't seen anything other than the parade. The parade might begin to be, except that the parade's got a lot of heterosexuals. So, but to have 400 LGBT people in one room together dancing, it was an amazing experience. Unfortunate for when I came out, because I came from rural Saskatchewan, the wasteland of LGBT people, into Metamorphosis. I come, of course, to go to university in September. So, but that's, and I don't know. Barb, I think in the final years the dances weren't as big, although I can't imagine because we always like to dance.
Yeah, I think they were smaller to start with, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember where they were either.
No, I just have bits and pieces of information. There's actually, oh yeah, this is 1979. And there's Eva D4 carrying the banner, and I think Barb Bowditch and Annabelle Paxton, maybe. Amazing.
Wow.
I don't know the men.
Yeah, I don't recognize anybody.
Oh, I haven't seen this one. Delia, was this yours? I don't know if she's still there. The
no, it wasn't. No.
Okay. The image changed in 1987, yes, to the rainbow flag, but up until that time it had always been the butterfly.
Right.
So I actually I think I have a poster.
Oh, we want it.
Yeah, so I'll go into my attic. I'll find anything that I have, and then
great.
you and I can, talk, and I can get it to you.
Yeah. Oh, that would be fabulous.
Yeah,
that would be. I have these two ceramic tiles, and I don't know who made them. I think it might have been Deb Pinard or who lived with Nancy, someone whose last name escapes me at the moment. Anyway, I have two of them, but one of them is now broken because I dropped it when I was trying to take a photograph.
So in the Neil Richards collection, there is another poster.
Okay.
That's the one that I did. I didn't, yeah, my name is signed on it somewhere, but he said, maker unknown. I was like, hey.
Is
But
it
yeah,
brown?
yes, it was on
Yeah.
brown paper.
There's a framed one at the Out Saskatoon office.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful poster, Delia. I wondered if that was yours, actually. It would be great to have one for the oh. Where did you get this, Cheryl?
What's that?
This information on what we're supposed to be doing. Are you trying to tell me something?
No, I'm trying to turn my screen share off. Yeah. Click.
I thought you were giving me hints.
Well, there's a question down at the bottom there.
Okay.
Does anyone remember why we did this? Why? Thanks, Mike. I think Barb was there at the beginning. Why did we start doing this?
Oh, because so many people in the community felt they couldn't go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving because they weren't welcome. So we decided to do something about that. I remember personally having several women up to our house every Christmas for about 2 or 3 years because they couldn't go home for Christmas. I think out of that came Metamorphosis. Yeah. We needed to find somewhere where we could collectively celebrate Thanksgiving with love and sharing rather than go home and get bullied or whatever. Yeah.
So, like in 1978, the Gay Community Center was still above the Indian Métis Friendship Center on 20th Street. I don't know how many people remember that. Mostly I remember the fights when we all closed at the same time and came pouring out onto the streets drunk. It was a terrible scene. Anyway, the two groups weren't that keen on each other, to say the least. And I think we had some part of Metamorphosis there as well, because you used to be able to crawl out the window and go on the rooftop of the building beside you, and me getting into serious trouble because I was on the board for the community center. And for some reason, after we cleaned up, I thought it was for Metamorphosis, we sat out there and drank the rest of the wine and got supreme shit from the straight in my world, gay men who I sat on the board with about my terrible irresponsibility as a board member, and I could have got the whole place shut down. And from where I was at that time, I thought, irresponsible? I wasn't irresponsible. We didn't throw the empties out and break them on the street or anything. Like, we were just sitting up there quietly drinking, whatever. Anyway, I didn't get kicked off the board, but it was close, and I had to make promises and do mea culpas and the rest of it. Anyway, so I can't remember when we moved to the basement over on 81.
Yeah, I think so. That's the first year I went.
And then we had this is a bit separate from Metamorphosis, but I remember we had 2 fires there. One of them was at the back door, that somebody started a fire at the back door, and someone broke in and made a fire in our sound room using all the books from our library.
Right.
But anyway, I can't remember. And then Numbers opened, and that sort of changed the community. Once that private club opened, we didn't work together anymore and that kind of thing.
Right.
So does anybody have their hand up? Cheryl? There you go. Okay, I was just gonna ask to Sarah if she had anything to say, because I remember she was around back then. Maybe she's not with us anymore.
So,
oh, there she is.
She was around back then because she's so old, right?
No, I remember you because we talked at one of the potlucks, and I remembered your store.
Yes. So
okay.
Like everyone, my memories crash between the women's group and women's dances and Metamorphosis. And I wasn't around in the 80s. I lived elsewhere. So I learned about the end of Metamorphosis from one of my ex-partners,
okay,
who was involved at the time.
Right.
But
in the like late 70s. I was a kid. I'm just going to verify that. I was a child.
Right. Yes.
So, you know, I was not out at that time, but I certainly knew about Metamorphosis and knew a lot of the people in the community. And that's pretty much it, other than seeing the posters. And the butterfly always sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
That is pretty much my memory.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I had asked Peter and Lyle earlier, and then someone had stuck their hand up, so they got priority. But I think one of those guys might have been around. Are they still with us? I don't see them anymore. Okay. I guess one of the other questions, Cheryl, does anybody have their hand up?
It's 11 o'clock, so we just
yeah. I guess one of the things I'd like to know is, where do we go from here? If anybody's got some thoughts about that, where do we go from here?
I know they tried resurrecting Metamorphosis, right?
Yes.
For a few years.
Yep. From 19...
But it didn't work out very well, I don't think it.
No.
I think it's about 3 years.
Yeah, from 1999 to 2001.
Okay, yes, I think I went to one of them. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
Because it did take a lot of energy to create the whole weekend, that's for sure.
It was a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
By not very many people.
Yes, that's
and I think that's why it sort of fizzled out, is one of the last committees only had about 4 people on it.
That's right.
And I vaguely remember a couple of years before that, Edmonton wanted to take it over and make it a real prairie thing where it would move, and Saskatoon blatantly refused. And then, you know, and the communities change, right? Like really our community, when that private club opened and the men went there, most of the men went there, that totally changed our community. We didn't work together anymore because we didn't have our own club and we didn't have that sort of thing. So, yeah. But where do we go from here? Are people even interested in doing some more work around this? I guess that would be the first thing to know, besides Cheryl and I.
Jen has her hand up. Oh, and Aaron too.
Okay. Jen,
yeah, I think it's that this is sort of like a kickoff to me of having these kind of conversations, and talking to each other sort of gets one thinking and remembering. And as you said, Jean, some of the visuals could continue that for people. And maybe if we want to stay in touch and have some more conversations of people, and so that we can make some kind of a record of this. And the idea of a virtual museum is a great one. It's also, I think, an important thing if the Western Development Museum wants to document or include LGBT history, the Metamorphosis has to be part of that. Yeah. Because it's hard to get into in a museum situation to, for example, represent lesbian history, because we were having potlucks, and we were working and looking after kids and getting involved in feminist stuff and doing all, and maybe we weren't as obvious. And so it's not in ways that you could put in a museum. What do you put in a museum? So Metamorphosis is something that really reflects lesbian history as well as the gay men. And I don't know how many transgender people were involved in those early days, but it's one way of showing something really important that happened in Saskatchewan, right, that we can include. But a virtual museum would be great, and to gather some oral histories, even if they are kind of muddled like our brains are now. There's, you know, we could maybe connect all the dots with other people's memories and a little poster here and there, but
I think they cut audio.
but we have to keep talking and doing this sort of thing, and keeping a record of it, recording it. So even if we're sounding muddled, don't worry about that, you know?
Yeah.
That's my thought anyway.
Thanks, Jen. Erin? Oh, Cheryl, you unmuted her and then remuted her, or she muted herself.
I'm just waiting. Can you get it? There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Jen. It's where we go from here. I think it's really critical to lesbian history, as well as to other, you know, to us LGBT plus peoples. Metamorphosis was so important, as we women have said, to the lesbians in this community and across Canada. As we can see, many of us don't, some of us here don't live here anymore. But it was critical to our coming out and our well-being and our working together in lots of ways. So I'm willing to keep working on this project, which I think to be housed in the WDM is a great idea. The only question I would have about that is that there is no WDM in Regina, and quite a lot of people in Regina have played an important part in this. So just something to think about for the future. Right. That's all.
Yeah. There was just before you go on, there was just an interesting observation as well made by one of our chat persons. It was asking the question about was there any Indigenous people, people of color involved in these events, and how the integration of other cultural communities was involved in Metamorphosis. I don't know if anyone has the answer to that.
There was some Aboriginal people, and there was a large crew of deaf men that seemed to have disappeared when the deaf schools closed down and the community got broken apart. But no particular attention was paid to people's cultural backgrounds, because we were there as queers, and we were queers first, you know, and so that's what I remember.
Oh, Sherry Heather.
Sorry, I was actually waving to someone in the house. I didn't realize I was on screen. But okay. I was thinking about Two-Spirited and Indigenous people, and I can think of a number of especially women early on, but later on some of the young men who came around and who started identifying as Two-Spirit, which in the beginning that language wasn't used a whole lot. And also some folks from other cultures who brought some of their cultures to the experience. I have a vague recollection of a workshop in the late 80s at Metamorphosis that was about racism and ethnicity and about changing how we react to people. I don't know if others remember that, but there's something niggling in my mind. Sorry, in my mind about that.
Yeah.
So I have a memory of Billy Britton, who was a First Nations hoop dancer. He was known all over Canada, and actually at one point met the Queen, and which was funny because we saw the photograph. We always say Queen meets Queen. But he did a friendship dance, which was so amazing because we were all in a room and we joined hands and we all moved. We started in different directions. And so what happens is we kept on singing and chanting and moving. we got tighter and tighter and tighter. We're all joined hands, and so we were a mass of people, body to body, in the center of the room, and he led that dance, and it was very moving. It was amazing. So, and I can't remember which year, and I think that I left Saskatoon in 81 for sure, maybe 80. I'm not clear. I should look at my immigration papers.
Right. Yeah, it's all pretty vague to me, I'm afraid. I would be interested in collecting everybody's email address, and I'm not sure the best way to do that. If I type my email address into the chat room, is that accessible to everyone? And then if people would email me, I will keep you posted. And also, like, I don't know, Delia, if it was you, I got a message from Viesha. For those of you who are around from 78 to 81 or 82 would remember Viesha. Yep. And she didn't have Zoom, and she didn't have, and so I just said, send me your email, and I'll get, because I have no idea where some of these people are. Terry has an amazing memory, and I'm sorry she's working and couldn't be here today. She gave me a list of at least 20 people who she could remember being involved in Metamorphosis, and I've been trying to track them down. And some people got tracked down and chose not to come or weren't available to come today. But I think we really need to do some more outreach to some people and try and wake up some more of those memories. And I don't know the best way to do that, but if I at least got everybody's email from today, I would be able to form a group, and if we're doing something, send it out and everyone would get it. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to type it into the chat if I can remember how to.
I think the other thing to do is, as I said at the beginning, is to look back in those boxes we have downstairs in the closets and take pictures of memorabilia that you've kept over the years and email them to Jean. A virtual museum actually allows us that ability to have lots of postings of items that you've taken a picture of. And as well, pictures, personal pictures would be great. Make sure you put the date and if you want, the names of the people on the picture and the location if possible. If it's memorabilia, what the memorabilia is. It could be a poster. We have, I think the archives has lots of the posters, but if there's other things like ticket stubs or items that we gave out during the event that you might have, take pictures of that, and again, write on the item what it is, where you got it, and the year, for sure the year. So hopefully we can amass a collection that, as Jean says, can become part of a virtual story about Metamorphosis for all of the years in Saskatchewan. And I'm just going to remind you of the time, Jean. I've got 11.
And I just need to, somehow my chat's coming up to Ross Bowden privately, which I wouldn't mind writing Ross privately, but I kind of wanted to write to everybody. So I don't know how to do that.
I'll do it. Jean.Dudley.
Jean Dudley at sastel.net. All lowercase. Thank you.
Delia has had her hand up there for a moment.
Oh, I actually, that was my comment.
Okay.
So,
so
I'm good. Just wait, Jean Dudley at sastel.net.
Yeah.
Okay.
All lowercase, one word. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There, I posted it.
It's complicated, I know. Anyway, this has been marvelous. And Cheryl and I have talked about, Cheryl mostly about starting a Facebook page for queer seniors. And if we do, I think we could have a Metamorphosis. We could also talk about Metamorphosis that way and put a call out to people. So is there anything you want to say goodbye? Anyone you want to say goodbye to? Virtual hugs to everyone.
Just an administrative matter. Sue, are they all, is the next session on this same Zoom address, or have they got their own Zoom address?
It will be on this Zoom address starting at 11:30, please.
Yeah.
So I knew we had till 1/4 after. I'd always said it was from 10 to 11:15, so I was quite surprised when I saw that it was only till 11. But anyway, we're good. I really want to thank people for coming and being part of this. It's been great to reminisce. I certainly remembered a few more things as people were talking, but I really need visuals. Like that's how I connect with stuff. So we'll see what we can get together. And someday the archives will open again. And everyone from the university here and the university in Toronto, or the archives in Toronto, were very helpful by saying, sorry, we're closed. And then the 2 books I wanted to mention is the Prairie Fairies, A History of Queer Communities and People in Western Canada by Valerie Kornick, who's at the next session, I believe. And then also I found Making a Scene, Lesbians and Community Across Canada from 1964 to 84. Had 4 or 5 pages about metamorphosis in that book. And so they were very useful to me, and I want to thank them for doing that. And thanks, Cheryl, for being such a good techie. And I guess that's it for us then.
Great. So I guess then, Sue, people just stay on this location, or they can, I guess they can come back in. So, and the next session starts at 11:30. And yeah.
Yeah.
We would like to make sure that everybody knows that the next session is dealing with it. It's a really good follow-up to this one, because we're talking about collections, queer collections. Why are they important, and what collections do we have available to us at this point, and how do they help to bring us out of the shadows and help us become more visible, so that we don't have to worry about how do we find other people like us. So I want to welcome everybody to the next session, and we will start that in about 15 minutes.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Nice to see so many faces that I haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, it's been great. Absolutely great.
This has been wonderful listening to all these memories. And thank you for Jean and Cheryl for taking on this project, and everyone else for joining and sharing your memories. And obviously this is a conversation that needs to continue.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Thank
See
you.
you, everyone. Hope to see you again anyway.
Bye, Jean. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
so great to see you.
Yeah, you look great. Who's your barber? I need their name.
They wouldn't let you into Canada.
Yeah, I know. For good reasons.
Oh, well, so be it, eh? Ah, good. Anyway, it's been marvelous. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.